Good afternoon, everyone. Here we are at the Crescent Heights High School Music Department, and we need to rehang a chime. So this is an instructional video on how to do that. You can see here that this one is totally on its last legs. The rest of them are in pretty good shape, but this one here is just barely hanging on by a shoestring. So it's best to be proactive and get that taken care of before, because as you can see down here, my foot's going to be here when I'm dampening, when I'm using the dampening pedal to dampen it. So if this chime were to let go and fall, it could actually break my foot. So we're going to be proactive as opposed to reactive and get this taken care of right away. So for this, you're going to need either some side cutters or needle nose pliers with a side cutting feature to them. You're going to need some 1/16 gauge, 1/16 inch gauge aircraft cable, which as you can see is available at Canadian Tire. Incidentally, this is one of the cheapest repairs you can do. This is 26 cents a foot. And then you're going to need to buy 1 million of these 1/16 inch aluminum sleeves, which is $12, and of course you're only going to need to use one of them for each chime that you rehang. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to push the dampening pedal down and we're going to pull the old chime right off. Now sometimes these are actually interwoven, so you're going to have to take a few of them off, but I've already unweaved these, or unwoven these rather, so that this one was easy to get off. The next thing I'm going to do, so this green spacer here, only premier chimes have these, and you can see that every single chime has one of these. Those are actually unnecessary, and it ends up being very difficult to get it back over the wire when you put the new wire on, and it's completely unnecessary, so we probably won't bother replacing that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set this like this. We're just going to tear this label off, and we're going to grab ourselves a crimp housing here out of our case. Just need one of them. And we're going to feed this through preemptively while the old one is still in there. The reason we want to do that is to make sure that when we come up with the new length, when we come up with our length, when we measure for our length, we're actually going to make it just as long as the old one was, to make sure that it works just as well, and to make sure that the chime is hanging at the same level. So now I'm going to very delicately feed. Now you can see that this is a little bit frayed if you get in really close there. So it might be difficult to feed it through. If it ends up being impossible to feed it through, you can just cut it again. That's why you buy a little more length of cable than necessary. So we're going to try to feed this through here, and we got it through. Now we're going to feed this other one through the other way. So you can see they're both fed through now. And I'm just pulling it together like this. And I'm trying to get about the same length, so I'm going to stretch this out a little bit so you can see that it's now just about exactly the same length as the old one. So now I'm just going to hold it in place. And one thing you might want to do is grab a Sharpie and just mark across the wires where they are in relation to one another, in relation to the crimper, so that you end up getting the exact correct length. I'm just going to double check that my loop is about the same length as the old one, and it's looking pretty good. So I'm going to keep it there. I'm going to keep my crimper right there, and I'm going to use the side cutting feature of my pliers, and it's as though I'm actually trying to cut this, but it won't cut. It'll just kind of clamp it in so that it's clamped right around the wires, and they're totally not going to go anywhere. You can see because my needle nose are on quite an angle, I'm doing it from both sides to make sure it's going to be completely effective. Now I'm going to cut the old wire right off like that, and now I've got this. So I'm just going to cut this. You can see, once again, I put just more length than necessary just in case I mess up, something goes completely wrong. And I've got more crimp housings than necessary for the same reason. So I'm going to cut there, and I'm going to cut here. And now I've got this. You can kind of give it a yank on either side just to make sure that the crimp housing is working effectively. And let's see how we did. So of course I need to push the dampening pedal down to loosen this housing. And I'm going to lower this in. And you see that oftentimes on the reinforced lip where you actually play the chime, It has the letter name written on it, so if you want to be mean to your students, you can turn it the other way around so that it doesn't have it, but you can leave it out since they're all facing out. And we're going to hook this side into those two, and we're going to hook this side into these two hooks over here. So you can see, if you want to just come over here, you can see where it has to be hooked through both of those two hooks, and it has to be hooked through both of these two hooks. And as it turns out, it looks like it's hanging at about the same level as all the rest of them. You can see that none of them are really perfect. This one is at about the same level as this one. It's a little bit higher than that one. And that's actually good because it'll give the cable a little bit of, like over time it'll settle, the cord will stretch and it'll sag a little bit. And our E sounds just fine. Thanks for watching. See you next time.